everyone. So now I'm going to start next 10 questions of UPSC 2016 paper 1. So here what 10 questions are remaining now. So we are going to just discuss that all so that we can be very much assured about the paper and the questions also. So next question is with the brief background of quality of urban life in India. Introduce the objectives and strategy of the smart city program. So some of the major problem of urbanization in India are urban sprawl, overcrowding, housing, unemployment, slum, squatter settlement, transport, water, sewerage problem, unemployment, trash disposal, urban crime, and problem urban pollutions. As we all know, we are living in a society, so what kind of problems we are facing today? So the smart city mission, as that is for the urban life and for the quality of urban life, that was a innovative and new initiative by the government of India to drive economic growth and improve the quality of the life. Okay, so enabling local development and harnessing the technology as the means to create smart outcome. All right, so next, smart city focus on their smart city. What is the smart city first of all? So what do you think about the smart city in your ideas? Where is the water availability, okay, electricity availability, and mobility, transport, okay, and we can say hotspot, wi-fi, hotspot, and wi-fi, all right, and we can say IT, digitalization, and sustainable environment as well, as because these all development activities are happening not in the cost of environmental degradation, and it is that's why smart, because this is sustainably very much developed as per the norms of the government and climate change. Okay, that's why we call this is a smart city. So there are lots of things like good planning, good practice, public private partnership, and policy change. All right, so there's 100 smart city vision and satellite towns of large city of modernization, the existing mid-sized city. These are also that is. Now we are going to the next question. So this is also the all-time favorite question. What is regionalism? This is 2020 also. This question repeated. Is it that unequal distribution of benefits of development on regional basis eventually promotes regionalism? So what is this unequal distribution of the benefits of development? Actually, we are living in a society where there is a very vast digital divide between rich and poor. Poor do not have the exact what exactly they required, and rich even have the 1%. Only rich have 40% of wealth, and only it's 2% or 3% wealth which is distributed between 60% of Indian peoples. So think what kind of divide in the Indian contrast we are seeing, that rich are more richer and the poor are more poor. So we firstly wants to reduce this divide from our society. So the regionalism is the outcome of the that we do not provided them the regional balanced distribution. So a feeling of attachment to one particular region is called regionalism. Okay, as per this should be in national interest. Okay, it should be focused on various factor can be responsible for regionalism, as geographical factor can be lead population to identify itself with particular region, like we can say Marathwada, we can say northeastern region, We can say southern region, Dravidial region, you can say Himachal region. So that is the kind of the geographical factors, that's why they are known by that name. All right, that's why this regional society has been developed at that particular area. Now caste and region has played an important role in the growth of regionalism, because economic factor like development and underdevelopment create sense of privilege of deprived in the people living in particular region. They are deprived because of they do not have the basic necessity, basic subsistence things to be survive in the life. That's why they are facing a period of regionalism in their entire life. Okay, so now we are talking about political and administrative factor also strongly results because of polarization of regionalism. Okay, one important and strong factor responsible for promotion of regionalism is economic benefit of development. Like if there is no distribution of resources, okay, distribution of resources between the rich to poor, so that is also we can say that that is a regionalism, type of regionalism. So development of actual benefit of is not reaching towards the marginalized people, towards the downtrodden people. So we want that that should be towards the downtrodden and marginalized. Okay, so we can say like we can find out a particular way to reduce these kind of regional disparity from our country. So Telangana is the recent example where people felt deprived of the benefit of economic development. All right, so we can say that the best example for regionalism is as a Telangana. We can say Telangana is the example of the regionalism, and the bad example we can say even because of development of Andhra Pradesh, they are fighting to each other. All these factors leading to strong feeling of regionalism have to be tackled in national perspective without hurting regional identity and pride. National interest and India first attitude should be developed among people. What do you want actually? We want there should not be any kind of discrimination like they are from Telangana, they are from Himachal Pradesh, they are from northeast, because we seen that chinkies in northeast, many people was calling that, and there was a mob lynching in that area also. And many kind of incidents we generally hear from the northeastern area and from the southern area also, like regionalism, language problem, language issues, like they don't accepting or Hindi, that's why that region is totally different from the northern region. So these kind of issues are there. Okay, we should has to curb these kind of issues. Now discuss the concept of air mass and explain its role in macroclimatic change. This question is particularly from the geography. So here we will discuss first of all what is air mass. Okay, air mass is a large uniform volume of air that is consistent property of density, temperature, humidity compared to the air surrounding this air mass, which may have different properties. So what is the air mass? Air mass is a particular large uniform volume of air. It is a large uniform volume of air where is particular density, temperature, and humidity. Okay, these factors are surrounded by that particular air mass. That's why this air mass has a different kind of properties. Okay, so this is the reason why we are calling this air mass. The type of air mass at a location will determine the types of weather condition. The air mass also determines the weather condition. Okay, what is the weather condition? That is determined by the air mass only. So the climate of the most region worldwide are affected by the air masses. For example, maritime tropical air sourced over warm water of the Atlantic Ocean. Okay, what we are giving example, maritime tropical air. So maritime tropical air is surrounded on the Atlantic Ocean, Caribbean Sea, and the Gulf of Mexico, primarily between the 10 to 13 degree north of latitude. As we all know, the latitude and longitude, this is a particular the Earth circle. There is 0 degree. Now this is 23 and half south. this is 23 and half north, okay, and this area is 30 degree, this area also 30 degree. So this area is the tropical area, this tropical region from 30 to 40 degree. Here is the large quantity of air masses generates here because of the special property of temperature, special property of pressure, special property of humidity, and so on. That's why the trade winds also generates here. Okay, so this is the latitude is the main contributor of precipitation for much of North America and East Rocky Mountains also. Air mass also is the cause of persistent humidity typical of that big region summer season. So in summer seasons also there is the air mass generation, okay, and in Pacific Northwest maritime polar air tracking inland from the Aleutian low in the winter supply the heavy mountain rain and snowfall that nourish vast temperature rainforest and extensive extensive alpine glacier. So what the reason because of there is the extensive alpine glaciers, and what the reason there is the mountainous rain is there. We can say the mountainous rain is there because of that there is a extensive alpine region, okay, in the Pacific North and maritime polar region, and that is because of only the air mass condition, okay. Such maritime air masses also contribute to a moderating climate influence coastal temperature as ocean heat up and cool down more slowly and less dramatically that land mass. There is some land mass also, like this is the mountainous area where there is the Aleutian ice shield is totally because of the these cold air mass, but some hot air mass is also there in the interior of continent. So these air masses are responsible for the climatic condition should be normalized in that particular area, okay. So the heat up, the ocean gets heats up and the cool down more slowly and less dramatically that land masses. An air mass that forms over the Arctic in winter would be cold and dry. So we can say in Arctic region is the always the air mass is cold and dry, okay, it is always cold and dry. And while an air mass that formed over the tropical ocean, what is the tropical ocean, this area 30 to 30 tropical ocean would be warm and moist. It is what it is warm and it is also moist. But in the Arctic circle, this is the Arctic circle, so in this Arctic circle this is cold and dry, okay, but in this tropical area, this is moist and warm. This is moist and warm. So we can see how air mass generates, how air mass is totally spread all over the country. Okay, so air mass are pushed around the globe by wind and follow the pattern of trough and ridge in the flow of air around the earth. Now the next question we are going to discuss, the Himalaya are highly prone to landslide. Landslide is the I think this question will be very important for this year because continuously the Hindu and the Indian Express also giving daily articles on landslide. So this was came in 2016, but still for 2021 this question is very important again. All right, so we are going to discuss about the landslide. What is a landslide? Landslide is very common in the Himalayas, especially during monsoon season. Himalaya landslide can be attributed to the fact that Himalaya lies at the convergence zone of two lithospheric plate. Two lithospheric plate. Okay, lithospheric plates are there. Okay, so here is the Himalaya. Okay, an Indian plate in the south and Eurasian plate in the north. Indian in the south and Eurasian plate in the north. So they both collides to each other and they form one landslide kind of condition. All right, are you getting my point? So that is the main reason why we are facing these kind of lithospheric continental collision between the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate. All right. So mostly Himalaya landslide are very shallow depth and minor. In Himalaya, what is the situation? They are shallow in depth. Okay, they are shallow in depth and they are very minor. They are not major landslides. All right. Recurring landslides are significantly more in Himalaya. These are noticed particularly in highly fractured and sheared rock mass, and also in soft hard rock alteration. They are sheared, all right, and they are very soft lead mass, and they are also fractured also. They are also fractured. So that's why true monsoon rain begins in the month of June in Himalaya. Devastating landslide mostly take place in latter part of monsoon, and August and September landslide mostly take place in latter part of monsoon. And perhaps this is because of fact that initially the subsoil accommodation lot of percolation. When the subsoil become saturated after a few months, it cannot be absorbed. Okay, when the subsoil uh, is saturated after a few months, it cannot be absorbed. So we should have a brief idea, common idea about the landslide, why they comes in the Himalayan area most of the time, and what are the reason of that coming. So many failure are known to occur due to the slip along fracture. So what are the reason? Like there are some fracture area and some slip across the fracture are some reasons because of the gravity of the earth. They are facing the conditions of landslides. There are many kind of reasons. It can be natural reason as well as it can be man-made reasons, but we can take some mitigation efforts to construction and mitigation programs to goal of the lessening of the effect of landslides in our earth. Okay, so for this, landslide mitigation is a difficult task, but some techniques can be prevent of reduce occurrence of landslide. Treating vulnerable slope in existing hazardous landslide are important. Like what is the vulnerable slope? What is the slope of that particular landslide? This slope is very important. Okay, it's existing hazardous landslide is important or not. Restricting development of landslide prone area can be useful, and preparing code for excavation, construction, and grading should be included. Like what is excavation is there, construction is there, grading. So there should be proper standards to be maintained. There should be proper rules and proper standards should be maintained to reduce these kind of landslide from that particular area. All right. So during the monsoon, during the disaster, they generally happens these kind of situations, but we should have some disaster management disaster management programs to be reducing these kind of activities in our earth. Now next question is the effective management of land and water resources will drastically reduce the human miseries. What this question wants to say to us, first of all, us is asking about the human settlement. Okay, and then it's asking about the management of land and water. Both are very important to manage the man and water. All right. So what I am going to ask here, human settlement depends on availability of land and water. Fertile land and potable water. Like what we want, fertile land and potable water is essential for survival of human life. So non availability of land in urban areas, underutilization of land in village area, inability to convert barren land into arable and industrial areas, mostly a result of mismanagement of actual shortage. What is there? The mismanagement, because we are not utilizing that particular area. Village is very small, even there is barren land, even there is arable land, even there is industrial area is deteriorating that management of that particular area. So this is the all reasons why we are facing this all. Similarly, availability of water, its uses and conservation is also subject to effective management of water resources. Okay, so both of these factors add to human miseries, which can solve by effective managing these resources. So what do we want? We should want like effective management. Okay, first of all we want management. All right, then we want water management as well as land management. So land use should be planned in a manner that allocation to agriculture, industry, and human settlement are balanced according to the requirement, and barren land should be converted into industrial zone rather than using arable and fertile, because barren land is not as far as we think about, that is not for the use in agricultural purpose. So we can say that this area can be go for industrial purpose. All right. So urbanization, which can be planned in advance, barren land stretch, that is also important for us. So water resources should be conserved and protected. Flowing rainwater can be conserved through watershed and other techniques. In agriculture, most effective micro irrigation system should be used. What is the micro irrigation? It is the Israel where from we got this micro irrigation, and the drip irrigation system, and the sprinkler system. So these kind of system we can use here. All right. So this system will help us for the management of land and water. So manage properly limited resources of water and land can result in abundance and efficient utilization, bringing welfare to the human society. That is the particular crux of this question, what we want to discuss here. All right. Okay. Now next question, South China Sea has assumed, this question is from geopolitics. So geopolitics is very important for IR as well as for geography also. Okay. So South China Sea has assumed great geopolitical significance in the present context. The South China Sea is a marginal sea that is part of Pacific Ocean, encompassing an area of around 3 lakh 500,000 square kilometer. The area important largely results from one third of the world's shipping through its water, and that it is believed to hold huge oil and gas reserve. What is there? Oil and gas. What is there? There is water resources, there is oil resources, there is gas resources. So this is very important area for our particular development of any country. This Pacific Ocean region is very important. The South China Sea region is very rich in the biodiversity, rich in the oil and gases resources, rich in the iron ore and all that particular resources. That's why that area is very important. The sea and its mostly uninhabited island are subject to competing claim of sovereignty. But what is the issue of sovereignty of Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Cambodia, regional countries? All claims like these resources are belongs to us. So all are there are fighting as like a monkey is fighting somewhere. Two monkeys, four monkeys are fighting somewhere. All right. So South China Sea has become an important area for implementation of China's naval strategy, and including blockading Taiwan and power projection into the India and Pacific Ocean. What is the reason the Taiwan and China is also fighting for the two country one system? Okay, so they both are also fighting in the South China Sea also. So if China will be there. Get the dominance, then Taiwan automatically will be subjugated in that particular area. America concerned with the South China Sea is result of China effort to secure control over maritime territory and resources contains. So the Philippines formally initiated arbitration proceeding against China, and the arbitral tribunal backed the Philippines, saying that there was no evidence that China had historically exercised exclusive control over the water resources. Hence, there was no legal basis for China to claim historic rights. But still, he is claiming 9 days line is there also. So, navigation in international water, including in the South China Sea, and right of passage in accordance with accepted principle of international law. So, what we want there should be navigation, but according to the international law, not according to their own prejudices or own dominance all of the countries. All right. Now, next question is from geography. Okay, it is major city of India are becoming more vulnerable to flood condition. So flood, this question is this time also very important, as we are facing the same flood condition in southern India and northern India, and many regional areas of the India are facing 2021. This one again is very important for us. Okay, so flood in urban area have become recurring phenomenon. In 2015 in Chennai, then Srinagar, in Mumbai and Kolkata, flood have resulted into devastation. Urban flooding has acquired extraordinary dimension. Earlier, when city received excessive rainfall, it would usually result in water logging in the low-lying area. What was the problem? Water logging. Okay. So waterlogging is the very bad problem, like badland topology kind of situation is occurred in that particular area of waterlogging. Okay, so growing city are creating excessive pressure on natural system such as marshy land, wetland, lakes, river, and resultantly a high rainfall even leads to massive urban flooding, crippling the urban life and economy. It's crippling. Okay, it's crippling. What crippling? It's crippling the urban life, livelihood, and their peace and calmness also. So urban flood begin with a unanticipated high rainfall even event which seriously disrupt public transport, electricity, communication, and urban economy. All right, so complex administrative setup of city where multiple authority and agency function with competing jurisdiction result into lack of coordination and management between all kind of cities. So from early warning system and from relief and recovery, we can take the change. Early warning system and relief and recovery is very important. Time has come to become proactive for urban flood and occurring on an annual basis starting from July. Bangkok remain flooded. So Bangkok was also facing the flood in July. All right. So what is the reasons are happening? We should be take care of everything. Okay. So now next question is there. Next question is there is from present. Present an account of Indus Water Treaty and examine the ecological, economics, and political implication in the context of changing bilateral relation. So, what is the Indus Water Treaty? It was signed in 1916 between India and Pakistan. Was broken by World Bank. World Bank was the mediator in between the India and Pakistan when this treaty was signed. According to the treaty, India is given control over the three eastern rivers, Byas, Ravi, and Satluj. Byas, Ravi, and Satluj was given the India, and rest of the western like Indus, Chenab, and Jhelum was belongs to Pakistan. So currently, major Pakistan relation are marred by cross-border terrorism issue. It makes the river sharing agreement critical. Okay, there is the cross-border terrorism always. So Pakistan river first flow through India. The treaty allowed India to use them for irrigation, all right, for transportation, for power generation, while laying down precise regulation for India building project along the way. More controversial are the provision on how the water were to be shared. What is the controversy is that how the water should be shared. So ecological disturbance is very bad phenomenal that particular area. Loss of sources of water causing great losses of water. Industrial areas developed there, but that is not according to that. All right, so sometimes argue that since the river originate in the Indus basin in India, there are possibility of India creating drought, famine, especially at time of war. But since ratification of treaty in 1960, India and Pakistan have not engaged in any water war. So however, disagreement and dispute have been settled via legal procedure provided by for within the framework of this treaty. So that's why Indus Water Treaty is very important for our exam, and this treaty can become in any time. Like it was in 2016, now it may come in 2021 also, or 22 also, or whatever UPSC will think this question will be continuously working. Enumerate the problem and prospect of inland water transport in India. Alright, so inland water transport. India has numerous small and large rivers which can be used for inland waterways transportation, but due to various reasons, this possibility has not been utilized to its fullest extent. What numerous small and large rivers we have? So they rivers are what helping us inland water transportation. So peninsular Indian river receive mostly seasonal water level which can handle transportation, and during summer season they become dry. In summer they become dry, but in winter season they get a huge amount of water. Okay, that's why they peninsular river receive the mostly the seasonal water. In northern India, rivers have water throughout the year, but other geographical conditions make their use for inland waterway transport system difficult. So many rivers like Bhagirathi, Hooghly face problem. Some of river like Narmada, Tapti passing through difficult terrain and has waterfall and which is not supportive for transportation. Like Narmada and Tapti are the river which are in the Rift Valley. That's why they are not supportive towards the transportation. But some rivers in the peninsular India are very much supportive for the transportation. But North India, these river are not as per that. Okay, so salinity is in coastal stage also affects the transport system. What is the other reason? The salinity is also affects the transportation. All right. So uh, so India's inland water transport has not been developed to more than 3% of its capacity, and therefore it is bright. It has It is a bright prospect, although India has 1450 kilometer of navigation inland waterway, but due to silting and problem that but not transportation expect in monsoon season when drafting is sufficient. So Asian Development Bank, ADB and EU, China and all that are going for MOU for the transportation. All right. So this was India is efforting to go for the better transportation, better waterways, better inland transportation system of India, and cargo movement in India by inland waterways. Okay, as per 35% cargo moves to the Bangladesh. Alright, now next question is what? In what way micro watershed development project help in water conservation, drought prone and semi-arid region? As we all know, the Thar region, alright, and many other regions like Gujarat, western region, and we can say Maharashtra, southern western regions. MP have some areas where there is a drought prone areas, and there is some kind of like areas which are really not according to the watershed development. Okay, so there is some micro watershed development projects we have adopted. Common outlets such as the outflow of reservoir, mouth of day or any point along with a stream channel. So there is what kind of scientific soil and water conservation techniques like biomass production, development of primary sources of land and water to produce secondary source of plants and animal for use of manner which will not cause ecological imbalance. So the process of creating implementing plans, programs, projects to enhance watershed function, that effective plants, animals and human community within the watershed boundaries. So micro watershed development project can be useful in prevention accumulation of seasonally flowing rainwater. So what is the rainwater is flowing, we will conserve that water, we will prevent the accumulation of seasonally flowing water. Okay, we will conserve that water, we will harvest that water. The stored water can be useful for a period of time to mitigate impact of drought, to mitigate impact of semi-arid region are facing the drinking water they even not provided presently agricultural purpose, even they do not have water, so they can be very much self-sufficient in water quality. So water conservation through micro watershed can also increase groundwater level and which would be useful to the people in semi-arid and drought prone areas also. All right, so we are getting what I want to say here, like micro watershed development, why that is very important for conservation of water in drought prone area and semi arid regions. All right, hope you understand all that topics. All right, thank you, bye, take care.